The first thing I saw that morning wasn't sunlight. It was a notification. Your mom added new photos. Half awake, I tapped it, expecting maybe a throwback or one of her daily gratitude posts. Instead, I froze. There she was, my mother, beaming under fairy lights. Dad was holding a champagne glass. My little sister, Emily, stood in the center wearing a gold dress and a crown made of white roses. The caption read, "Happy 27th to my golden girl, the only one worth baking for." And then, dozens of comments, aunts, cousins, old neighbors, all writing how proud they were of her. Someone even tagged the catering company. My thumb hovered over the screen. I scrolled, trying to understand. That night, my birthday, was yesterday. And while I spent it alone, eating boxed pasta and watching reruns, my family was throwing a lavish surprise party for her. No one had texted me. Not even a happy birthday. I stared at the photos again, the layered cake, the string quartet, the glitter balloons that spelled Emily. I knew the backyard. It was the same one where, when I turned 18, Mom told me we couldn't afford a party. The irony burned hotter than the coffee in my hand. My name is Ava Collins. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because this story, it isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering everything. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? When people talk about betrayal, they always picture dramatic moments, fights, slammed doors, screaming matches. Mine came quietly. Through a phone screen. Through a caption that said, "The only one worth baking for." It's strange, how a few words can erase years of being the older sister who helped raise her. Who stayed home from college tours to babysit her when Mom couldn't handle it. Who paid half the mortgage when Dad lost his job. I laughed, quietly at first, then louder, until tears blurred my vision. Because if you don't laugh, you break. That's when I opened my laptop. Not out of anger, but clarity. The kind that only comes when something finally snaps. 3 drafts had been sitting in my outbox for weeks, emails I never thought I'd send. One to my old boss. One to the real estate agent. And one to the lawyer. My cursor hovered over send all. The world outside my window was still asleep. But something in me had already woken up. I hit send. And just like that, my revenge began, quietly, elegantly, with the click of a mouse. Tomorrow, they'd wake up to their first surprise. Because I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I was the one holding the matches. By morning, the silence felt different. Heavier. Like the air itself was holding its breath. I made coffee, black, no sugar, and opened my laptop. The sent folder gleamed with quiet satisfaction. 3 emails. 3 detonators. The first was to Martin, my old boss at the accounting firm I left 2 years ago, the one Mom called a phase. Martin once told me, "If you ever want to build something of your own, I'll back you." That morning, I reminded him of his promise. Attached, a full acquisition proposal. For Collins and Company. Bakery LLC. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom's precious bakery, the one she bragged about, the one she said Emily will inherit one day. What she didn't know. The land it sat on wasn't fully paid off. Dad refinanced it 3 years ago, using my name as guarantor when I co-signed a mortgage to help them. And when they stopped making payments, the property quietly became mine. The second email went to the real estate agent, confirming the sale listing I'd drafted months ago, after discovering the default clause. It wasn't anger that pushed me, it was precision. A slow, measured reclaiming. The third email. That one was to their lawyer. The one who handled their trust. The one who once smiled too kindly when I was told I wasn't included in the family succession plan. I wrote. Please proceed with asset transfer, effective immediately. Authorization attached. AC. Then I sat back. Let the clock tick. By noon, Mom's first text came through. MOM, did you change something with the bakery's account? Our supplier says payments are frozen. I stared at the screen. Did I? Yes. Technically. Everything she thought she owned, flour, ovens, tables, mixers, was now leased property. When she remarried after Dad passed, she never noticed the fine print I'd adjusted in the co-ownership papers she begged me to sign, for tax reasons. She wanted a bakery dynasty. I gave her paperwork. Then came the Facebook post. She deleted the birthday photos. I almost felt bad. Almost. By evening, Emily called. Her voice was soft, unsure. Ava. Mom's freaking out. She said someone's trying to ruin her business. Do you know anything? Her tone dripped with concern, the kind she used when she wanted information. Not love. Information. I smiled into the receiver. Tell her it's probably a system glitch. Things reset eventually. Silence. Then she said, you sound different. I guess I finally am. That night, I lit a candle, opened a blank journal, and wrote 3 words across the page. Phase 1, recognition. Because before you can make someone lose everything, you have to make them see you. Tomorrow, she'd see me. By sunrise, the phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls. Unknown numbers. Then, finally, MOM. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice came through sharp, brittle, like glass under pressure. Ava. What did you do? I stirred my coffee, let the silence breathe. What do you mean, Mom? Don't play stupid. The bakery's accounts are frozen. The landlord says the property is under review. They're talking foreclosure. I smiled into the steam. The landlord was me. Maybe it's a misunderstanding, I said softly. Didn't Dad's lawyer handle that paperwork before he passed? She hesitated. And in that pause, I could almost hear her realizing, Dad didn't handle anything. I did. Ava, she hissed. If this is some kind of revenge. I cut her off. Revenge? Mom, you made it clear yesterday that I'm not worth baking for. Why would I care about your bakery? Her breath caught. You saw that? I did. I let the silence stretch until it became a mirror. When she finally spoke again, her voice trembled. You don't understand. Emily. Stop. My tone was calm, colder than I expected. This isn't about Emily. It's about you pretending I don't exist unless you need something signed. She started crying, the kind of crying that used to break me. But this time, I only felt distance. Clean, weightless distance. I hung up before she could say another word. 5 minutes later, my inbox chimed, a message from the real estate agent. Offer received. Full cash payment. Buyer requests immediate transfer. Attached was a figure, $850,000. More than I'd hoped for. I stared at it, then out the window where the morning light cut through the blinds. The bakery had always smelled like cinnamon and burned sugar, warmth wrapped in control. Now, it was just numbers on a page. And I was free. Around noon, Emily posted something on Instagram, a story of her crying in the bakery kitchen, saying, "Please pray for us. Someone's trying to destroy my mom's dream." Hundreds of sympathy comments poured in. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly cared. One even tagged me with a passive-aggressive, "Family should be family." I didn't reply. I just watched. Because soon, they'd realize, this wasn't destruction. It was redistribution. Every recipe, every oven, every unpaid debt that carried my name was finally returning to where it belonged. That night, I sent one more email, to the buyer. I added a note. Include a clause that the Collins family cannot repurchase or lease the property under any name associated with them. Then I wrote in my journal. Phase 2, Realignment. The first match had been struck. And as the smoke began to rise, I finally understood, I wasn't burning bridges. I was lighting my own way out. 2 days later, I got a text from Emily. Short. Panicked. "Mom's gone to stay with Aunt Carol. She says you destroyed her." I stared at it for a long time before replying. Destroyed? No, Em. I just took back what was mine. No typing bubbles appeared. Just silence. That afternoon, I drove past the bakery. The "for sale" sign leaned slightly against the fence, catching sunlight. Inside, I saw boxes, mixers half wrapped in bubble film, counters stripped bare, flour dust still floating in the air like ghosts. I remembered being 12, hands sticky with dough, when Mom said, "One day, this will all be Emily's." I laughed then, thinking she was joking. Turns out, she wasn't. The memory hurt, but it didn't sting anymore. It just existed. When I got home, I found a voicemail from Emily. Her voice was tired. "I don't know why you're doing this, Ava. Mom's a mess. Dad's gone, and now the bakery too. I wish you'd just talk to us instead of, whatever this is." Talked. That was her word. As if conversation ever worked in a house where silence was a weapon. I opened my journal. Wrote. Phase 3, Reflection. Because every revenge needs a mirror. You don't just punish, you make them look. That night, I sent an anonymous message to a local food blog that once featured Mom's Bakery. Tip: the Collins Bakery is closing due to unpaid debts and mismanagement. Turns out, the Golden family recipe was built on borrowed money. They published it within hours. The comments section was brutal, whispers about bad accounting, shady loans, family drama. I didn't need to say a word. The world did it for me. By morning, Emily had deleted her Instagram story. Mom's Facebook page was gone. And suddenly, no one was tagging them. I thought it would feel triumphant. It didn't. It felt quiet. Like walking through the ruins of something you'd already grieved years ago. So I made breakfast: eggs, toast, black coffee. Simple. Peaceful. Then the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Emily was there. No makeup, dark circles, eyes red but sharp. She didn't wait to be invited in. She just said, "Why?" I looked at her, really looked, and saw the sister I used to protect. The one who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms. The one who once whispered, "You're my favorite person." "I didn't destroy anything," I said softly. "I just stopped pretending I wasn't already erased." Her lip trembled. Then she whispered, "Mom's selling the house. She says there's nothing left." I nodded. "Then she'll finally understand what it's like." Emily took a deep breath. "Are you happy now?" I met her eyes. No, I said. But I'm clean. She left without another word. I watched her car disappear down the road, headlights cutting through the dusk. Then I whispered to no one in particular. Phase 4, Reckoning. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about winning. It's about making sure they feel the silence they left you in. It started with the quiet. The kind that doesn't comfort, it follows. After Emily left, my house felt bigger. Too big. The kind of empty that hums. I tried to work. Tried to cook. Tried to sleep. But the silence kept circling back, replaying her last words. Are you happy now? The truth was complicated. Revenge had tasted sharp, clean, like biting into something metallic. But now, it lingered. Bitter. Like coffee left too long on the stove. By the third day, I drove past the bakery again. The windows were papered over. Someone had scrawled "sold" in red marker across the sign. For a second, I parked and just sat there. Watching people walk by. No one stopped to look. No one cared that an empire, my mother's empire, had fallen. I should have felt victory. Instead, I felt small. Like I'd been fighting ghosts. That night, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. Inbox, empty. No new messages. No new chaos. Just peace, the kind that's too quiet to trust. I clicked open my journal. Phase 5, I wrote. Then paused. Because what comes after reckoning? When the ashes settle and there's nothing left to prove. My phone buzzed. An email, from an address I didn't recognize. Subject, you might want to see this. Attachment, a photo. It was the bakery, but the lights were on. Inside, Emily stood behind the counter, smiling for a local news crew. A banner above her read. Reopening soon, Emily's Hearth. I laughed once, sharp, involuntary. Of course. She'd found a way to turn even this into a story. The article link below read. After tragedy struck her family business, young entrepreneur Emily Collins rises from the ashes to rebuild with heart. And there it was, my revenge, rewritten. I wasn't the Avenger anymore. I was the villain in her comeback arc. The comments section flooded with sympathy and praise. People donated. Offered help. Even Mom, tagged in every post, was getting "stay strong" messages. Somewhere between the lines, I realized the truth. They'd lost their bakery. But I'd lost my narrative. For the first time, I wondered if revenge had an echo, one that always comes back, quieter but sharper. I stared at Emily's photo again, the same soft smile, the same bright eyes that used to look up to me. And for a flicker of a second, I saw something else. Not defiance. Sadness. Because maybe she wasn't celebrating. Maybe she was surviving, just like me. I closed the laptop. Took a long breath. And whispered. Phase 5, Reversal. Because sometimes, the only thing harder than being forgotten is realizing you became the person who did the forgetting. By the weekend, my name was everywhere, though never spoken directly. Just implied. Certain family members sabotage her mother's dream. Some people can't stand to see others succeed. Jealousy runs deep. Each post, each whisper, all knives dressed as sympathy. Emily didn't tag me, but she didn't need to. Everyone knew. I scrolled through the comments, the way you press on a bruise just to make sure it still hurts. And it did. Someone from high school messaged me. Hey, is it true? I didn't think you'd do something like that. I didn't reply. There's no point explaining fire to people who only see smoke. That night, I drove again, not to the bakery, but to the cliff by the river where Dad used to take me when I was little. He'd say, "Still water hides the deepest current." I finally understood what he meant. I sat on the hood of my car, wind in my hair, and thought about how strange it was. I'd spent my whole life trying to be seen. And now that I was, it was for all the wrong reasons. Mom still hadn't called. Not once. And maybe that was the real punishment, not hers, but mine. The revenge had been too perfect. Too clean. It erased them, but in doing so, it erased the part of me that needed to be heard. When I got home, I found a letter on my porch. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, a single line. "You could have just told me you were hurting." It was Emily's handwriting. No blame. No excuses. Just that. I sat down on the floor, letter trembling in my hands. The tears came quietly, not angry, not regretful, just honest. I realized then, revenge doesn't end with satisfaction. It ends with reflection, the part no one films. Because what you destroy to feel seen, might have been the last thing still connecting you to love. I lit a candle on the table, the flame small, fragile, human. The kind of light that doesn't demand, it just exists. And for the first time, I didn't think about revenge or forgiveness. I thought about Dad. How he always said love and pain come from the same root, you just choose which one to water. I blew out the candle. Watched the smoke twist and vanish. Then I wrote in my journal. Phase 6, Reconstruction. Because sometimes, rebuilding isn't about what you lost. It's about what you're finally willing to face. Tomorrow, I'd visit her. Not to apologize. Not to explain. But to see if the silence could hold something new, something honest. And maybe that would be enough. It took me 3 tries to step out of the car. The new bakery, Emily's hearth, sat in the same building, but it looked different. Brighter. The windows gleamed, the sign hand-painted with warmth. Inside, the smell hit me first, cinnamon and orange peel. The scent of our childhood. The one thing I swore I'd never miss. Emily stood behind the counter, hair tied up, apron dusted with flour. When she saw me, she froze, not angry, just startled. The kind of pause that holds years between it. I managed a small smile. "Busy morning?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah. Grand openings tomorrow." I walked closer, my reflection flickering across the glass display. Rows of cookies, pies, and... I stopped. A single cake at the center. White frosting. Gold lettering. For Ava. My throat tightened. I pointed at it. "What's that?" She wiped her hands on her apron, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought you might come." Silence. Then I said, "You didn't have to." "I know," she said softly. "But you did what you thought you had to." Maybe I needed to, too. There it was, no venom, no blame. Just truth. For the first time in years, we sat together at the same table. No audience. No filtered captions. Just 2 women who finally stopped performing the idea of family long enough to see each other. "I never wanted to hurt you," I said quietly. She looked down, fingers tracing the edge of the napkin. "I know. But you did." "I know." The air between us wasn't hostile anymore. It was human. After a long pause, she said, "Mom's been staying with Aunt Carol. She's not doing great." I nodded. I didn't expect her to. She looked up then, eyes glassy but steady. She said something, though. She said maybe she shouldn't have made us compete for love. That sentence hit harder than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. Because it was true. Emily reached across the table. Her hand stopped halfway. Not a gesture of forgiveness, just recognition. And that was enough. When I left, she packed me a box, a small loaf of bread, still warm. As she handed it over, she smiled faintly. "You always liked the crusty kind. The same kind Mom used to burn." I walked out into the fading afternoon, the sky bruised with color. For the first time, I didn't feel like the villain or the victim. Just someone who had finally stopped running from the past. In the car, I opened my journal. Wrote the final line of the second-to-last phase. Phase 7, Redemption. Because forgiveness isn't about forgetting what they did. It's about remembering without needing it to hurt. Tomorrow, I'd visit Mom. And maybe, just maybe, we'd start again. Even if it was only to say goodbye. I drove out early. The air was pale and silver, the kind of morning that feels like it's holding its breath. Aunt Carol's house sat on the edge of town, quiet and sun-faded. Mom was in the garden when I pulled up, kneeling in the dirt, gloved hands trimming dead roses. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not weak, just human. When she noticed me, she froze. Then straightened, brushing soil from her knees. No smile. No tears. Just two women standing in the wreckage of everything they'd built wrong. "Hi, Mom," I said. She nodded. "You came." I stepped closer, the scent of earth and wilted flowers mixing with memory. "I wanted to see you." Her voice was brittle. "You got what you wanted. The bakery's gone. The house too. I hope it was worth it." I took a breath, steady. It wasn't about money. Then what was it about? It was about hearing myself again. She looked at me then, really looked, eyes red-rimmed, tired, searching. For the first time, I saw not the woman who hurt me, but the one who never learned how to love anyone without control. "I read the posts," she said. "You didn't defend yourself." I shook my head. "There's nothing to defend. Everyone already decided who I am." Her hands trembled as she reached into her pocket, pulling out an envelope. "Your father wrote this before he died. I never showed you. Maybe I should've." She handed it to me, the paper soft from years of being unfolded, refolded, hidden. Inside, Dad's handwriting, uneven but familiar. "Ava, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I know your mother can be cruel. But she loves you in the only way she knows how, through what she can control. Don't let that turn your heart hard. You see clearer than both of us ever did. Don't lose that." I read it twice. Then once more. When I looked up, Mom's eyes were full of something I'd never seen before. Regret. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Not for losing the bakery. For losing you." The words hit like rain, soft, unexpected, cleansing. I nodded, voice steady. "I can't change what happened. Neither can you. But maybe we can stop pretending it didn't." For a moment, the air felt lighter. Not forgiveness. Just truth, raw and fragile between us. I handed her a small white box, the loaf Emily gave me yesterday. "She said it's Mom's recipe," I said. Her eyes softened. She took it, held it close like something holy. Emily always did have your heart, she murmured. No, I said quietly. You did. You just didn't know what to do with it. The wind carried that line away. And for once, she didn't argue. As I walked back to my car, the sun broke through, golden, unashamed. I opened my journal one last time and wrote. Phase 8, completion. Then I looked at the house in the rearview mirror, small, trembling under the weight of time, and whispered.